3 days later, Grace returned home. She expected things to calm down. Instead, she found 2 suitcases waiting in the sitting room. Edwin was seated quietly. Several members of his family were present. So were village elders. Grace immediately sensed something was wrong. What happened? Edwin folded his hands.
I've called everyone here because I've made my decision.
Grace's heart began to race.
What decision?
I want a divorce.
The room became deathly quiet. One of the elders stood up immediately.
Edwin, think carefully before speaking. I have.
Grace looked at him in disbelief.
Because I gave birth to girls?
Edwin remained silent. She asked again.
Answer me.
Finally, he said, I need a wife who can give me a son. Grace staggered backwards as though someone had struck her. One of the elderly women in the room burst into tears. Another elder slammed his walking stick against the floor. This is madness. Edwin remained unmoved.
The family name must continue.
The oldest elder looked at him sternly.
Have you forgotten that it is God who determines whether a child is male or female?
Edwin looked away.
I've made up my mind.
Grace slowly looked around the room. Not one person supported what Edwin was doing. Yet no one could force him to change. She wiped her tears. Then she walked quietly into the children's room. The girls were playing together, unaware that their lives were about to change forever. Ada looked up happily.
Mommy, are we going somewhere?
Grace forced a smile. Yes. Will Daddy come with us? Grace couldn't answer. She simply nodded for them to pack their clothes. As they carried their small bags outside, little Hope ran toward Edwin. She stretched out her tiny arms. Daddy. For a brief second, everyone thought Edwin would pick her up. Instead, he stepped aside. Hope lost her balance and fell onto the ground. The compound became silent. Ada quickly rushed to help her little sister. Grace closed her eyes. She didn't shout. She didn't argue. She simply picked Hope up, held all 6 girls close, and walked toward the gate. Just before leaving, she turned back. There was no anger in her voice, only heartbreak.
One day, Edwin, you will understand that you never lacked a son. You lacked the wisdom to recognize the treasure God had already placed in your hands.
She walked away without looking back. Edwin stood at the gate until they disappeared down the dusty road. He told himself he felt nothing. But somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered that he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. For weeks after the divorce, the mansion felt strangely quiet. There were no little feet running through the corridors, no laughter from the garden, no toys scattered across the sitting room. Edwin noticed the silence, but convinced himself it was peace. He buried himself in work, believing he had finally removed the obstacle standing between him and the son he had always desired. Grace, on the other hand, moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town. The roof leaked whenever it rained. The kitchen was barely large enough for 2 people. Yet every evening, the house echoed with laughter. Not because life was easy, but because Grace refused to let bitterness become the inheritance she gave her daughters. She took sewing jobs during the day. At night, she taught neighborhood children to earn a little more money. Some nights, she skipped dinner so the girls could eat. Whenever Ada asked why she wasn't eating, Grace simply smiled. I ate while cooking. It was a lie she repeated so often that eventually even she almost believed it. One afternoon, while returning from school, Ada found her mother sitting outside, secretly mending the same pair of worn-out slippers she had been wearing for almost 3 years. Mummy. Grace quickly hid them behind her wrapper. Ada understood immediately. That evening, she gathered her younger sisters. Without telling Grace, the 6 girls agreed on something. From that day forward, none of them would ever ask for anything they knew their mother couldn't afford. If they needed new shoes, they polished the old ones. If school fees became difficult, they studied even harder so they could earn scholarships. Grace never knew the silent promise they had made. Meanwhile, Edwin's life was moving in the opposite direction. Business had never been better. Contracts poured in from every corner of the country. Magazine covers called him the king of construction. Television stations competed for interviews. At every award ceremony, people praised him as the perfect example of success. Only one question continued following him everywhere. When will you remarry? At first he ignored it. Then, Patricia walked into his office. She wasn't the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. She was simply different, calm, intelligent, soft-spoken. She had applied for a position as the company's legal advisor. During the interview, she answered every question with confidence. When Edwin asked why she wanted the job despite already having an excellent career, she smiled.
I believe some opportunities change the direction of a person's life.
So
She
do
got
I.
the job that same day. Within months, Patricia became the one employee Edwin trusted more than anyone else. She corrected contracts others overlooked, saved the company from a costly lawsuit, exposed dishonest suppliers. Even the board members admired her. What nobody knew was that Patricia never applied for the job by accident. 25 years earlier, a bridge under construction had collapsed into a river during a heavy storm. 32 people died, among them her father. She was only 10 years old. The newspapers blamed Edwin's company. The government closed the investigation after only 2 weeks. No one was punished. Patricia never forgot the headline she had read as a little girl. Greed claims 32 lives. From that day, she made one promise. One day, the man responsible would lose everything he loved. And now, she was sitting just a few meters from him every day, watching, waiting, planning. One evening, Edwin invited Patricia to dinner to celebrate the company's biggest contract in its history. She almost refused. Almost. Instead, she accepted. During dinner, Edwin laughed more than he had in years. He spoke about business, his dreams, his future. Then his expression changed. There is still one thing missing. Patricia pretended not to know. The son? Edwin smiled sadly. Yes. She looked into his eyes for a brief moment, then quietly lowered hers. Exactly as she had planned. Months later, the wedding took place. It was the biggest society wedding of the year. Newspapers described Patricia as the woman who restored happiness to Chief Edwin's life. Grace saw the photographs in a newspaper stand while walking home from the market. She stared at them for a few seconds, then quietly folded the newspaper and placed it back. Ada, now old enough to understand, looked at her mother. Does it hurt? Grace smiled. Pain only stays where forgiveness refuses to enter. She picked up the basket of vegetables. Come on, we still have dinner to cook. Back at Edwin's mansion, Patricia walked into the master bedroom after the guests had left. She removed her wedding jewelry, opened an old wooden box hidden inside her suitcase. Inside was a faded newspaper cutting from 25 years earlier. Next to it, a photograph of her father. She touched it gently, then whispered,
The first part is complete.
She closed the box. Neither Edwin nor anyone else in the mansion saw the tiny hidden camera tucked inside the flower vase near the window. Someone else was watching Patricia